And actor Ray Meagher joins us live from Australia. Good morning, good evening to you, Ray, as we know it is there. What an incredible run you've had. 1988 this first started, and you say that actually you just feel so lucky to have been part of it for such a long time.
Absolutely. Good morning to you both. It's wonderful to see you again. I think it's about a year since I've been in. But yes, I do feel blessed to have had this job for as long as I have. It's a great job and I enjoy every day of it.
Well, it's nice, actually, for... and you are a legend on that set and in that show, but it's nice, actually, to have been in that long and still get, chunky roles here.
Yeah, look, it has been a long time between drinks for Alf, as you pointed out in your intro. But it's very nice that his wife, who tragically died before we shot the pilot some 31 years ago, it turns out she drowned in a tragic accident, and it turns out she was a hell of a lot better swimmer than we gave her credit for. So she turned up all these years later, and around we go again.
So I imagine he's got an awful lot of questions for her, as does Rue. I mean, she didn't just leave behind Alf, she left behind a daughter as well.
Yeah, she did, and actually Alf received a letter some time before he told Rue that her mother was still alive, so that caused a bit of friction between Alf and Rue, as well as the friction between Alf and Martha. So we try to work all that out as we go along. It looks as though it's going along fairly well when Martha comes back to town. Nobody's mentioned, of course, the prospect that Alf was a bigamist, because he did marry Ailsa during that period. Yep. But that could be a whole new storyline. Who knows?
Probably will be.
So has she given you, bearing in mind, as you said, that this all happened in 1985, which was before the series actually started, before you'd even shot the pilot. So, that was a complicated backstory even before you went on air. That was she trying to escape him or her life? And why did she fake her death from Alf all those years ago?
Well, she was suffering from borderline personality disorder. And, of course, back then it wasn't diagnosed as that. Everybody would have just said she's a bit mad. And nobody knew what the problem was. She knew she wasn't right, but couldn't find out exactly what her problem was. So rather than burden Alf and Rue with her, she faked her death. Doing the noble thing, I suppose she thought she was doing at the time, but, we missed her, and thank God she was a better swimmer than we thought.
Yeah, and then she's come back. So there's going to be an element of forgiveness here. Are we looking at sort of a romantic interest here? I mean, could that all be rekindled?
Oh, Holly, there's still a few tricks left in the old dog's bag at this stage, so you never know. Look, it's looking as though they might resolve their differences at least, and there's the hint of falling back into what they may have had when they were kids. It's a bit early to tell whether or not it'll go any further, but at this stage it's pottering along rather nicely.
Well, he has actually missed her, hasn't he?
Oh, he's missed her dreadfully, really, particularly over the last 10 years, 15 years or so, when there's been nobody in his life, from a romantic point of view. So, yeah, the possibility of something like that happening is pretty good, particularly with his first love. The possibility of rekindling really appeals to him.
I love the fact that that with this role, all these years later, and we've been lucky to have met you so many times, and you come to the Soap Awards a couple of times, that you almost turned it down.
Yeah, look, at the time I was very busy, luckily. I was a freelance actor, and I was doing a mini-series with the late, great Sir John Mills called The True Story of Spit McPhee, and another mini-series called True Believers, about the early history of the Labor Party in Australia here. And there was a three-week hiatus between the two mini-series. And that was when the pilot for Home and Away was shot. And I thought, oh, well, it's a pilot for a soap that'll probably never get off the ground. I might as well do the pilot and fill in the 3 weeks.
3 decades later.
So they wanted
exactly.
you to sign a long contract, and you said, I'm not signing up for 2 years.
Exactly. Yeah, they wanted everybody to sign for 2 years at the time. And as I said, I was lucky enough to be fairly busy at the time and didn't want to commit for 2 years. And the then producer, John Holmes, said, well, what about a year? And I said, oh, no, that's a lifetime. I wouldn't sign for a year. And he said, what about 6 months? And I said, yeah, all right, I'll sign for 6 months. He left the network, he left Channel 7 and went to Channel 9 and then to Channel 10 and then around the world. And he finished up back at Channel 7 some 15 years later as head of drama. And I passed him in the corridor and he said, 6 months, eh? Just 15 years later. So,
how funny. Belinda, who plays Martha, you've worked with her before, haven't you? Were you sort of mentioned her name when they were looking for who to play her?
Yeah, I did. She's a wonderful actress and a terrific person. We did our first television drama, the first time we'd appeared on an Australian television drama together in 1972. It was an episode of a police series called Matlock Police, where I think I was a horse-rustling sort of a person. She was the daughter of squattocracy, and I think I tried to rape her. And the father didn't think that was the right thing to do. He hit me over the back of the head with a shovel, and that was the end of that.
Well, you can understand that. Well, it's nice it's nice that you've got such a a history together, and she's back with you this time. But it has been reported, and I think it was actually in the Sydney Morning Herald, that you are reducing your hours. What does that mean?
Oh, it doesn't mean much, Phillip, really. Over the last, I don't know, 10, 15, maybe 20 years. Each Christmas I'd go over to your country to do a pantomime, and then more recently I went over twice to do Priscilla, Queen of the Desert in the West End. Once was a 6-month stint. So if you average my time over the last 10 or 15 years, I probably worked 40 weeks a year. From now on a new contract, I'll probably work 35, 36 weeks of the year. So it's just taking a tiny bit more time out. But I ain't going nowhere.
No,
that's good to know.
Well, we look forward to our yearly Christmas visit when you come back and do Panto, so we shall see you then.
Thank you very much, Holly, and thanks very much for your continued interest. We really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Thank you
Channel
very
5
much.
tonight, of course, Home and Away is on at 6:30. Thank you very much.